Jobin Puneker back in and bring him back into the conversation. Jobin, have you been able to talk with any of the parents that may have shown up there? I know there's been there is a reunification, and Jason, you touched on the fact Dallas ISD was asking parents, don't come to the school just yet. But I think we got Jobin now. Have you been able to talk to anyone there about what's happening or what they're seeing?
Well, Chris, if that message is out there from the district, these parents are not heeding that, and I think we can all understand that we want to see our loved ones, we want to see our children, and so yes, people are still coming up to find their children, reunify with their children. Shauna Williams has 2 children. We're going to talk with her briefly. You have 2 children.
Yes.
At this school.
Yes.
How did you hear about it? Was it a text message? I mean, you've heard that was on lock.
My son called me. He was outside running, and he said that gunshots was over his head or something he was saying, and then he was just getting from a Career Institute.
Okay.
And then he went in the cafeteria. He saw 2 of his friends get shot.
You're saying your son's 2 friends were shot in the cafeteria?
Yes. That's what he said.
And have you had a chance to talk with him?
My son?
Yeah.
Yeah, my son is over there.
And how is? I'm assuming he's shot.
They shocked. They shooken up. They were. My oldest one was crying, and then my other one, he called me, and I work at the school, and I had to come race over here and see what's going on because he scared me. I was so scared. Yeah, I was.
As a parent, you're hearing about how close these shootings are now to us.
And this was like last year, the same time. Happened the same time last year. Yeah.
We know about the school having metal detectors. We know that they have clear bag policies.
They do. And even the badges, they have to wear the badges. But I don't see how they could have got in the building. I don't see how they could have got, because it's secured. When I come up here to get them, and they always check for my badge and ID and everything. So I don't know how they could have got in the school building.
It feels like you're in a state of just shock, bewilderment, all the things.
I had to drive here safely because I was about to pass out.
Why pass out?
Because my son was screaming and hollering like he was in a range of fire. That's why I had to rush from my job and come up here and see where he was, because I got 2 sons.
2 sons who go here.
Yeah, 2 sons that got to go.
We're starting to see a whole bunch of parents now trying to find their children. Explain to us how a parent is feeling in this moment.
Everybody was frantic. My car is way down at the other end, and along with some other parents, we had to walk all the way to the stadium. That's how eager we wanted to get to our kids. Yeah, it's very bad that we have to keep going through this. It's sad.
Speak to that if you can. Just the nature of these school shootings, and they're happening over and over and over again. This happened almost a year ago, exactly to the day.
Yes, and it's traumatizing. I mean, I be at work and I have to stop everything I'm doing because my baby like, Mama, come get me. And I was like, oh my God. So I just had to leave work real fast and come get them. And the same thing happened last year around about this time. I was at work and I was frantic. It's the parents' worst nightmare.
Shauna, that is such a tough feeling to feel, and I'm sure you're feeling a lot of things right now.
Yes.
And I'm hoping the best for you, and I'm hoping that you had a chance to talk with your children through what they just witnessed.
I'm trying to put them in homeschool because I can't take another round of this. This is horrifying, and it's just sad, because somebody had to go through this with their kids being shot. That's a parent's worst nightmare.
Absolutely. A lot of, a nightmare unfolding here at Wilmer Hutchins. Yet again, another shooting. Again, we're still limited on a lot of the details, but right now, again, we still have traffic going in and out. They're not going to go much past here. Again, we have 2 parking lots that are now filled with law enforcement vehicles. School still on lockdown. Will be.
Hey, we want to welcome everybody to another episode of You and the Law podcast show. I'm one of the hosts of the show, Virgil Green, and as always, I got to introduce the brother who sits next to me every Thursday, who goes by the name of Chief Swaggy One, the Ultimate Beast. Brother, how you doing?
I'm tired of this stuff.
Yeah, man.
I'm tired of this topic, man. I'm tired. We've been working on this show, and then today, they had the tragedy at Florida State University, and being familiar with the college setting, it's very nerve-wracking. I don't know when this stopped. It's the day they were talking about this has been the 83rd mass shooting in the nation, and the 6th this year so far in the state of Florida.
Yeah.
So and then the thing that's very interesting about the one in Florida State, the suspect's mother's in law enforcement. So his mother works for the sheriff's department of that county, in that county. So it's just this has been and the more I was doing research on the Wilmer Hutchins thing, I was raised just right next to Wilmer Hutchins, just right next to Hutchins. So the Oak Cliff area. And when you realize that, they had all the precautions at the school. So there was, the metal detectors, all the doors being secured. And the way that the suspect got into the school was basically someone let him in through one of the locked doors.
Yeah.
So the school did everything right as far as the security methods, but then you see that someone from inside the school who, whether they knew that this was the intention of this suspect or not, voluntarily let this person into the school, and he went on a shooting rampage.
Yeah, Keith, and this was something, this happened last year about the same time. And so all these schools have put other security measures in place to prevent incidents like this from happening, as you just mentioned. And these students know that they're not supposed to go to a door to let anybody into the school. So they clearly know that. So, hopefully throughout this investigation, they're able to identify who that student was, to talk to that student to see if that student had any idea that this student had a weapon and that his intent was to come in and to start shooting students. But Keith, as we talk about tonight's topic, trauma after school shootings, and listening to that parent speak to that news reporter, as she mentioned that she's thinking about putting her kids, homeschooling her kids. It has gotten to a point, Keith, where since Columbine, there has been, I don't know, just the numbers of school shootings has continued to increase. We're not seeing any decreases in these school shootings. We're actually seeing an increase in them. And you mentioned that the school had all these safety measures in place, but there are a lot of other schools who have went a step further, where if you open up a door, it's going to sound an alarm. And I think this is going to probably be something that the school district is going to look at to see how can they just really tighten the security at these schools much more, to prevent a student from even going to a door to open a door. But even if they do, it's going to send off an alarm immediately, and which that should prevent anyone from coming into the school.
So they did a timeline of the shooting, and from the time that the suspect parked on property till he entered the school and started shooting was under 5 minutes. So it was a quick. His actions were very quick. Looks like they were deliberate. There was something that was said during that interview. The reporter was stating that parents have been asked not to come. Well, that's not going to happen. They're going to come. Yeah. And those parents, can you just imagine? And I don't want to ever imagine this or have to endure this, but can you imagine the unknown? You know that there's a school shooting. And I think law enforcement and school officials know that that's going to be highly impossible to keep parents from immediately responding to the school. That's why it's very important to have a coordinated plan to where that this is going to be the staging location for parents. You're going to have parents, and this is one of the things that we tell officers and we tell school officials. You can't take it personally because a lot of emotions are going to be taking place. So there's going to be a lot of emotions. There's going to be a lot of anger, and there's going to be some cursing. There could even possibly be some physical altercations because people want to get to their kids. They want to know that their kids are okay.
Okay, just go back to what happened in Uvalde. Just go back to how they mishandled that situation and how officers got into it with parents.
And this didn't appear to be anything mishandled. It was seems like a textbook response from Dallas Independent School District has their own police department. They have a fairly large police department. You have Dallas Police in that jurisdiction. Wilmer, Texas has their police department. You got the Highway Patrol, Texas Highway Patrol. You got Dallas County Sheriff. You got the fire department.
Constables.
I know that. Yes, I know the constables. I know that Texas passed a state law that there must be armed guards or armed security on campuses. And so I know that there had been some, even though they have their own police department, there has to be an armed armed security officer, whether it's a retired police officer or I believe a level 3 security officer that's allowed to carry a gun, has to be on each campus. So I know that they were looking at ways to expand that program because it's a very expensive program. But, just the fact that happened so quickly, did they have time to respond? Because apparently this suspect was in and out, got back in the car. I think I shared with you earlier.
I don't think he got back in a car.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. He
left the school, and there is a gentleman who picked him up, and and the student said, "Take me to my dad," and then something as they were going to wherever he was driving him to, something clicked. And he asked him something. He said, "Well, I can't take you there. I have to go back to work." And he ended up taking him to a convenience store, some local convenience store. And he got out, and then he heard something over the news or saw something on his phone. And then that's when he realized, I may have just picked up this kid who was involved in that shooting.
Yeah, and it's, apparently this kid had those individuals that he had someone targeted. He had the people or the victims, they were targeted. What I don't think
Keith, let me ask you this. He had some people targeted. And I don't want, we don't know all what's going on with this investigation. We can just assume from our experience and just looking into this, that is it possible that it's going to come out that this student who let this other student in had some kind of knowledge that this is what this student came to the school to do?
Well, that's what I was saying earlier, Virgil. We don't know if that person knew that or if he did know that. And I would think that either way it goes, there's going to be some form of accountability. Whether he knew it or not, it's very clear that you don't lead anyone into a building. I believe that if he didn't know that he had the weapon, I think there's going to be some major school sanctions coming down on him. If he did know, then there's going to be some criminal charges against this individual. But my thing is, as a student, and we can say that, as a teen, you're not thinking. They're not thinking about that. But at the end of the day, even if he had no idea this was going to occur, why would you let someone in? It's pretty obvious that if someone has to come through a locked door, they're either banned from the school or they don't belong there. Whatever way, they're not a student there, or they've been suspended or whatever. But why would you lead someone into the school? I mean, that's the question. So, why let someone into a school, into an area that's locked, whether you knew it or not? That's dangerous. That puts the entire school in a very dangerous situation. The thing that concerns me, the victims, those kids, those students and teachers that witnessed that, the family, the trauma that the families are, just the fact that you don't know what the condition of your
Yeah.
child is. And Virgil, this is what you got to understand too. There's a lot of states now that are banning cell phone usage at school. So I don't know if that means that you can't have the phone in your class, on your person while you're in class, or it has to be in your locker. I don't know, but I think that in itself causes a concern to parents. And then, can you just imagine when that type of things happen? 911 is overloaded, and it can tie up the lines where parents can't call in and kids can't call out. Cell phone towers are overloaded. But just Virgil, just think about into our audience. Just think about the emotions, the anger, the fear of, is my child okay? The unknown is so stressful. So the unknown is so stressful. I mean, who that stress in itself, just I mean, just think about it. You don't know what your loved one's going through. You don't know if they've been shot. You don't know if what and think about it. Law enforcement can't tell you anything specific
Correct.
at that point. So it's going to be interesting to see what else this comes out of
Well,
this.
Keith, and I think one of the things you just touched on is the banning of cell phones in schools. Um, you have uh, LA public schools, one of the largest school districts in the country. They banned cell phones just recently, this past year. And I think the intent is to, you know, prevent some of the students from distractions from the students being on social media, all these things.
Yeah,
But when this came about and you start seeing states pass legislation related to banning cell phones in schools or giving school districts the authority to ban cell phones, you have to think about incidents like this here, Keith, where these students need to be able to contact their parents or even call 911. And now there's been some limitations on that. And, you ask this question, are the students still able to bring their phones to school? Or are they being told you have to lock them in a locker, or you can have them, but you can't have them out? And I think this is going to raise a concern with parents, especially with these school shootings, that they need to make sure that their kids are safe. And as we
yeah.
talk about the trauma that these incidents continue to have on the students and the parents, um, I just wonder, are school districts and policymakers taking that under consideration?
I don't know. I know I've heard two or three rules of thumb on that. I've heard that when they go into the classroom, they're placed into a container, and then they get their phones back as they go between classes. And I've heard some say they're not allowed to bring them in the classrooms; they have to place them in the locker. So I don't know, but at the end of the day, things like this will cause parents to question those laws, to push for those laws to be abolished and allow kids. And I know they can be a distraction. I know they can be a distraction, but I mean, it's what I mean. What do you give up?
Well,
I mean, what should as a parent or as a student, what did you have to give up to be
yeah.
safe?
Well, Keith, again, and I think this is where the school district needs to talk to the parents. You need to
Hmm.
have the community involved. If a school district or school board is thinking about banning cell phones in schools, they need to have that message with the parents and the teachers. Because,
Yeah.
as William put in the chat, is that, some of this cell phone footage is able to help law enforcement. Even though you got
Right.
a lot of schools who have cameras, there have been times where some of these incidents have been live streamed, and it has given the outside, law enforcement, family, whoever, the ability to see what's going on in real time. So again, I just think that is something that really needs to be reconsidered. Now, if they allow them to bring them to school, but you can't take the phone out and use it in the classroom, that's one thing. But
Right.
in this situation, when you start hearing what sounds to be gunfire, and you got kids who are running from classrooms or running from the cafeteria, wherever it may be, the first thing they're going to think about is calling their parents. Now, can you imagine this? If you come to school and say you got to lock your cell phone up and you can't have access to it, I think that's where a lot of parents will look at what are the alternative. Can I send my son or daughter to another school where they have that freedom to have their cell phones?
Well, I know in some states it's a statewide ban on them, but that's a good question. I mean, what parent wants to not be able to get in contact with their child in that situation? You heard the mother say that she was driving frantically. She was trying to drive safely, but at the same time, she was frantic because the same thing happened last year around the same time. So now you don't know, your child is telling you, this, and you're trying to get there, and then, you call them back and they can't answer the phone. And then you're hearing all these news updates. And then when you get on scene, you see all these law enforcement cars and parents, and like she said, she had to park down the street and walk a long way to try to get toward the school because there's no access to the school. And then it's a crime scene. So they're very hectic situations, very hectic scenes that you have. So everybody has to work together, but rightfully so. Parents are going to be traumatized.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear, I don't know. They don't want to hear, well, wait over here. And when you become a veteran in law enforcement, the longer you've been in law enforcement, you really understand. You start to understand. And as a parent, as a parent, even as a police officer, we're trained to remain calm, but that parent in you is going to want to know, what's really happening.
Keith, and I just want to go back to what happened in Uvalde. Every time that there's been a school shooting, it's always, well, we learned this from this tragic incident. We learned from Columbine.
Right.
We're supposed to have learned something from Sandy Hook. We're supposed to have learned something from, the school in Florida. And all these other school shootings that have happened, everybody says, after the fact, we've learned this here. Now we need to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And, I'm going to put the parent hat on and step outside of the police chief hat and just put the parent hat on and say, what are you all doing to really protect our kids in schools? But also, how quickly are you putting information out? And one of the things that concerned me was listening to some of the reports from last night is that the parents did not receive an immediate notification from the school about a school shooting.
Virgil, let me say this, and I'm not defending anyone. Our stance is being neutral, but I will tell you that just think about how chaotic the scene is, and you do want to send out mass notifications. Schools, districts, universities. I mean, the universities are governed by the Clery Act, that every higher ed institution must have a mass notification system, and they must make notifications when it's within reasonable time or timely effort. Well, what is that timely effort? Because you're still getting information. So do you want to put it out there that, you're putting false information out there that, this happened, this is all we know. You want to try to get as much information out as you can. There's no easy way there's no easy solution to this, because you're going to have people that say you didn't get information out quick enough. You're going to have people that say you got it out too soon. They're going to say you didn't have enough information. They're going to say that they didn't get it, because you're going to have parents that haven't signed up for the mass notification. Some people don't have cell phones. Some people don't have internet. So, everybody may not get it. So you have to understand this is a very fluid situation that's continually moving. So you try to get as much information as you can, and you try to get as accurate information as you can, so that it will provide information that as soon as you can, the shooters has been neutralized. There are no injuries. You try to get that information out, but I'm telling you right now, parents, you send those out. You're supposed to send them out. That's where you're supposed to do. As a parent, I want to know, but it's still a very chaotic situation. And so it's a situation where it's kind of like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. You're not putting out enough information. You're not putting it out fast. All you can do is get the information out that you can get out. And that's why it's very important for the school district and the police department to work together, so they're all on one accord. Mm-hmm. That's why you have to have staging areas for parents. You have to have staging areas for the media. You have to make sure. That's why active shooter drills are important. That's why tabletops exercises are important, so that you'll have an idea that when this occurs, okay, this is the media spot, this is where they go, this is where the parents stay. Then you kind of make a determination of, I need more than one officer trying to control this parent meeting spot. I might need 15 officers over here. I'm trying to get as much information as I can. So it's a very chaotic scene. It is very chaotic.
Well, and William puts in the chat that, the comment that I just made regarding the parents' notification, but he also believes that the incident, as you just mentioned as well, is that things are just so fluid and dynamic. There will never be a situation in which a notification is made quick enough. But I think this just kind of goes back to, this happened last year. And I again, being very neutral on this, Keith, but at the same time, this happened last year. What was learned from last year to say we need to make sure that, one, our notification system is in place. Two, where will we have the parents go to if there's a school shooting at this school? Where will the media go? Where will the buses go to take the students to this location? So all of these things are things that, we are putting these positions to make these critical decisions to when they do happen, to where after the incident, now everybody is there's this review and everybody is saying, okay, well, this happened and this happened, but I'm just kind of going back to what happened a year ago. And here we are a year later, and you've got parents who are rightfully so asking a lot of questions about, why did it take so long for them to come out and say anything about it? Why wasn't there a much more coordinated effort to have students removed from the school, taken to another location? Because as you saw, the students were outside in an open area. One of the things that, and I want to say, maybe we talked about this on our podcast before, Keith, where our guest mentioned you're exposing these kids to another element outside, and you don't know if there is another person who has intent on shooting more students. So why are you exposing them on an outside and not an inside to protect more students?
Virgil, you use the resources. You use the resources you have there's a perfect situation.
Oh no, it's not
And
going
when
to be
you
perfect.
look at it,
Yeah.
you try to get away in an interior room. Going to be able to, they're just not. And so I've been in places where that's where they feel the safest place for employees. So to say that they're in a perfect situation, you would like to have them in somewhere that's enclosed. But when you have that many people, you're going to have to probably have an open area. And that's why they have police escorts with them. That's
Yeah. Hey, Swaggy One, man, we're having some
you're talking thousands
connection problems on your end.
When you're talking thousands, that might be what you have.
Yeah. Hey, Keith, man, we're getting some connection issue on your end. I don't know if you're able to hear me or not, but there's some lag time on your connections. It's kind of freezing up a little bit. But
I mean,
I think I heard you as you were mentioning
that's a perfect situation is that you take them. But when you have thousands of kids, and Wilmer Hutchins is a large school, all the high schools in Dallas, and so it's unless you have an area that's already an enclosed area, that's the only place you can take them. You need that space. You need that space to get kids because you have so many mass number of students that are coming out. And listening to this or what actually happened.
Yeah, Keith, I hear you, and I think those who are tuned into the podcast clearly understand that things are so fluid, they're moving so quick. But this is where I kind of go back to looking at things from both sides, from the side that we're in and looking at it from the side of a parent, because there's going to be a lot of questions that parents are going to be asking why, and it's going to be left up to the school district and the police department to answer those questions and be transparent about what can we do better to make sure that this doesn't happen again, and what can we do to make sure that the students are safe when we do have a active shooter at the school. Where can they go? Again, this all goes back into planning, and as you mentioned, Keith, nothing is going to be perfect, but the one thing that people will always say is that when I send my son or daughter to school, I'm expecting them to come home safely. And whatever you have to do, you need to make sure that that is done. So that's where a lot of parents will be seeking that information from, to say, we dealt with this last year, now it happened again. What happened? How did this happen? And so again, I just think it's just really important that because I go back to, Keith, the whole Uvalde, Texas incident, how everything that happened after that was the state of Texas said we need to make sure we do a better job of responding and getting this information out to the parents as soon as we're able to get that information out.
Virgil, there was nothing wrong with the response.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying the response, Keith. What I'm saying is because you hear a parent, and the one parent she said, well, how the reporter asked her, how did you get notified? She said, her student. Was there a text message or anything put in place? So again, the response was great
Right.
because they were able to, I mean, the student got out of the school before law enforcement got there, but yeah, the response was as best as you can ask for.
I can tell you, no matter how soon they sent that message out to the parents, it's not going to be soon enough. And what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that as a knock. I'm just saying that there's not going to be a parent that believed it was soon enough.
Yeah. Well, and again, everybody's going to find some kind of fault in something.
Absolutely.
Somebody's, yeah. And again, I just think this is where so many school districts, so many school boards need to have these conversations with their parents, with their teachers, and with their students to say, yeah, we're thinking about banning cell phones, but how is this going to prevent you from notifying your family in the event that there is a school shooting or some other kind of, crisis that's going on at the school?
But I still, Virgil, I want to make sure to the audience I'm coming through clear. But, okay.
Yeah, Keith, you are now. While ago, you
that
had
is your
some
technology, not mine. But
no, man, that's your technology, brother. William, you listening now?
No, that was yours, man. It's something
right,
that
man.
affects mine. Yours affects mine. But listen, the big thing here that we're missing the whole time is, why was this kid lit into the school? This kid was lit into the school through a locked door that was intentionally opened by another student. And so that's going to be why. And like I said previously, what did they know? Did they know he was coming up here to do this?
What?
Because there's obviously they did, and I'm going to say that I believe, and I might be wrong, but I would feel safe in saying they must have known, because why did that kid not come through the front? They knew that they couldn't get through the front with a gun.
Oh, he knew. Yeah, he knew because.
Well, then you let him through the back where there's not any metal detectors, and they can come in and do what he needed to do. So I'm hoping that child or that person is held accountable, just like this other, this other child. And I will tell you this, man. I think you start going after these parents too. I think you have to start going after these parents of these kids, man.
Yeah. Again, I think you're right. I think, the student who opened up the door needs to be held accountable. Where did this 17-year-old get this weapon from? Was the parents aware of that he had some reason not to go to school? What did the parents know, and what did they know, and what did they not know?
It's very clear it was a targeted attack, because if you listen to his rant on Facebook Live, he basically said that somebody was out to kill him, and he was going to get them before they got him.
Before they got him, yeah, clearly. So, well, Keith, I want to remind those who are just now tuning into the podcast that tonight's topic is trauma after school shootings, and this is something that these kids, these teachers, these parents will never forget. And as I'm reading one of the recent news stories that came out, is that these students say that they're scared to go back to school. Now,
Absolutely.
School, what, Keith, we're probably maybe 3-4 weeks from where some schools will be let out for the year.
At least 30 days.
At
least the next 30 days.
Yeah. I mean, you got proms coming up. You got graduations coming up. You got all these things coming up. And once again, this same school had a school shooting a year ago, and here we are again dealing with another school shooting. So, and I guess this is the question that a lot of parents are going to be wondering. Even though you have all these safety measures in place, what else can be done, Keith, to prevent these things from happening? And Keith, it is a lot of this is on these kids, where we just have a different mindset of young men and women who don't value life. And I think they are is whatever they want to do is in that
Yeah.
moment. And that is something that really needs to be discussed, because we're going to be back here talking again about another school shooting,
Well, I think
unfortunately.
I think the school districts and the local law enforcement or the law enforcement agencies responsible for the safety of those schools have a responsibility slash obligation to make parents aware of what emergency preparedness they have in store for these type of situations. I think that they need to I think that they need to know that this is what we have in place. This is what to expect. I think that we've kind of, it's a situation. I think that some schools and some districts still don't want to have the conversation because it's such a graphic conversation, but it's reality. In 2025, it's
Yeah,
reality. So you have to,
yeah,
and I, when I give talks, I talk about it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And that might sound a little bit graphic, but that's just reality right now. You just never know when. And so they need to know, parents need to know. As a parent, I want to know that the school district and the police department are working together, that the police department have the resources to respond to this type of situation. What do I need to expect as a parent? Doesn't mean that my emotions will not be in place or will not take over if something like this happens. But at least I'm aware that okay, this is okay. Oh yeah, I remember. I got to go to the staging area. I got to do this. Not saying it's going to happen because, like I said, emotions kick in. People forget about plans. As law enforcement, we can't forget about plans. We can't forget about planning.
yeah.
We can't, as school officials, you can't forget about planning. So you have to provide that information. PTA is a good time. The first part of the year, providing that information online, having what do you call them? Where everybody comes into the auditorium and stuff and talk to
Yeah.
them. I don't think we get the message out enough of what our preparedness looks like. You know, I don't think we get that message, and I still think there's members of law enforcement who are hesitant to share that we have a plan in place because we don't want people to know what we can do. Well,
Well, in a
okay,
time of crisis, everybody needs to know what you're doing.
everybody needs to know. So
Yeah,
those are things that I think that we're not doing as law enforcement, and I think it's the same thing with school districts. I think there's that hesitation because we don't want to frighten our students. We don't want to frighten our parents. We want them, but this is the deal: parents and students are afraid anyway. There's a fear of a parent each and every day. These parents drop their kids off at school. There's a fear because things like this happen. Just a year ago, it happened at another school. How often do we have a situation that happens at the same school a year later or even ever again? So, but you're talking about two in a year in a year's time.
yeah,
So of course
yeah,
there's going to be fear. Not only at that school, anytime these things occur, the fear factor goes up in a parent's mind.
yeah. Well, Keith, again, the fear is what it's just listening to this parent talk about her drive from where she was at to get to the school, and all these other parents sharing that same anxiety, that same fear, trying to get there, trying to make sure that their kids are safe. And I think this just goes back to, you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of anger in parents because they want answers. Uh, and I think one of the things that we're missing, Keith, is that you have a lot of teachers who have kids going to school, to the same schools or going to other schools. So this is not only something that we have teachers who have kids going to school, who or some may be going to the same school. So this is something that needs to be looked at. We had all these, again, so many school shootings, and they continue to happen, but parents are still wanting to know what can be done to prevent it.
But and I've got to come to the defense of Wilmer Hutchins, and when I say defense, I've got to speak on their behalf, not officially, but as someone who's very familiar with DISD and what they've done. And the fact of the matter is, they stepped up their efforts. This was a situation that, could they have had more hall monitors? Don't know. Not going to second guess. Could they have had teachers walking the halls on their breaks or whatever? Could they have had more ancillary resources? Don't know. But this was a situation where you had some nut, let another nut inside, and now kids are hurt, parents are emotionally distraught, and so I don't think we can talk about. I think we talk about the fact of this bill from there, where they came from, where they are now, and was there something? Now that's going to be the key. Was there something that was missed that would allow or put that nut in a position to be able to go over there and unlock that door?
Well, Keith, I think
did they say they were going to the bathroom and restroom and then go? Did they say they were going to the nurse's office? Who knows? Were they just walking the hallway? Who knows? But that could have been worse. I'm thankful that no one died. My prayers go out for the injured. All of those students and teachers, parents, that's going to be something that they'll remember the rest of their lives, and it's not a positive situation.
Yeah, well, Keith, and I think the one thing that this is, again, kind of going back to that this is the second shooting at this school. One occurred last year around the same time in April. And so I think there's going to be questions about, this happened again last year, Nash this year. What could have been done? And again, the student is the one who let he let his friend inside of the school. And I think, some more information is definitely going to come out if that other student is going to be charged once he's identified, and what he knew and what he didn't know. Keith, one of the comments in the chat was, when you talk about holding parents responsible, should the deputy in Florida, should she be held somewhat accountable or responsible for the shooting that her son was involved with? Because I think you had mentioned.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
No, I just mentioned, you had mentioned earlier about holding, parents responsible. Yeah. Now here we're looking at a person in law enforcement whose son, did the school shooting in Florida. Should she face some responsibility?
I think when you look at the laws where parents are held responsible, it's the fact of the matter when it comes to when a child is a certain age. I know there's laws that says you have to secure your weapons if you have children of this age or younger in the home. I do know that there are laws that they say that if you know that your child or someone in your house has some form of mental illness to the point of serious mental illness, you have to ensure that your weapons are locked. You can't have a weapon if you're a convicted felon. If you have a domestic violence charge, you can't possess a weapon or be near a weapon. So, I think you have to take all those into consideration. It seems to the point we don't know if this suspect had some mental illness. We don't know if there was any indication that he had made these statements before. I think that's when you get into the fact of if he had made some comments regarding this and the mother was aware of it, I think that they do become liable. I think it's going to be hard if you have an adult living in your home and there's no indication I think it's going to be very difficult to hold the mother accountable. Now, civilly, maybe they could. Criminally, don't know. Don't think so. But at the end of the day, even the sheriff said that this suspect was part of a youth advisory board for the sheriff's department. He had done ride-alongs, so very familiar with the sheriff's department, very familiar with law enforcement. It's going to be interesting to see exactly what was it that caused this person to go onto that university, into a building on that university, and kill 2 people and injure 6 others. That's going to be the key. And so that's why it's really important. And I tell anyone, read the DOJ, Department of Justice's after action report on Uvalde. All these school shootings, and all the mass shootings have an after action report where you can actually go and read from start to finish what they found in the investigation as an overview of the incident and what the investigation revealed. Those are really interesting to read. They're graphic. Some are very graphic, but they're really interesting to read, and you can learn a lot from those. What the strengths and the opportunities were. What they did right and the mistakes or the opportunities that they need to correct in the future.
Yeah. Well, Keith, I'm just now reading that the shooting at Florida State, at the university, at FSU, that the student did have access to his mother's firearms. And one of the firearms that they did find was one of her personal weapons. So, again, we talk about gun safety. We talk about, keeping weapons secured in a place where, only you should have access to them. Even, this young man is 20 years old. He's not 17, but clearly he knew how to use weapons. He knew where these weapons were at. And so, like you said, I think, unfortunately, he killed 2 people, injured 6 others. That there's going to be some looking into it, on the criminal side of it, as well as the civil side of it, and the fact that you have somebody who knew how to use these firearms.
Well, I mean, you're looking at an adult. You're looking at his mom, who's a sheriff's deputy. He's an adult. If there was no reason to believe he was a danger to himself, if there was no reason to believe that he was going to use those weapons, I think it's going to be very difficult to charge a mom unless you can find that she was that she contributed to it.
Well, she had some.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot, law enforcement officers, when you have adult children, unless you know that there could be a danger to themselves, a lot of law enforcement officers probably don't secure their weapons when they have adult children, or they're all adults in the house, unless there's something that they know. So it's going to be that's going to be interesting. I will tell you, I can only imagine how distraught she is. Well,
it kind of goes to, what was the motive behind, obviously the 17-year-old in Dallas, he had some kind of beef with some other students. But what was the motive behind this college student, shooting, killing other students and injuring, 6 other students? What was going on to escalate this up to where he felt that he needed to use gun violence? And again, Keith, we opened this at the top of the podcast just talking about, here we are once again talking about another school shooting. It is the trauma that the parents, the students, teachers are dealing with. And I think it's definitely having an impact on the educational system in our country, because you don't hear about school shootings outside of the United States like you do here in our country.
You don't. You really don't, and they're becoming more and more frequent.
Yeah. Well, and again, And Keith, this is something that I don't know if you thought about this, but I thought about it last night. Is that school shootings start at the beginning of the school year, in the middle of the school year, and all the way toward the end of the school year. There's never really a period of time where school shootings do not occur from what is it? Some school districts starts in August or September, they end in May or June. But just think about the months that students and parents have to wonder, will there be a school shooting at my son's or daughter's school today? And how will I react to that?
Well, one of the things I do want to I want to say to the audience, I mean, I think that there's nothing more that shocks the soul of a nation, of this nation, and when a child is injured or killed. Um,
Hmm.
and that goes all the way up to higher ed. You believe that there's three places that I believe that people believe there should be safe. That's your home, that's in church, and that's your school. Unfortunately, none of those places are 100% safe
Or
in these
say,
days.
yeah.
But when you start thinking about your child is at school, you're at work, your child is school, and you think that that's the one place I can leave my child where they won't and not worry about their safety. And something like this happens in Wilmer Hutchins, or something like that happens in Uvalde, or something like
Hmm.
that happens at Columbine, or the other hundreds of schools where there's been shootings. That puts a lot of stress on parents. And now, do you homeschool your child? I don't think there's a such thing as a school that's exempt from violence. And so where do you send your kid? You know,
Well,
you
well,
know,
Keith, and I think, yeah, and I think Keith, sit during COVID, you had a lot of online uh, education, uh, and I think you are still seeing that continuing, where a lot of parents didn't send their kids back to school. They're going through some of these, online schools. Like in Oklahoma, it's Epic, or they're charter schools, and but what I think parents are looking at, if my son or daughter, they're inside of my home, I know they're safe. But if I send them to school, I got to be worried about their safety. So you've seen an increase in these online schools, uh, but it takes away from that, this, that connection that you have with other people. But here's the safety aspect that you don't have to be worried about. Uh,
hopefully.
well, I don't know how many times, how many kids have been shot inside of their home while attending school.
One, two, it wouldn't matter if it's one or 200. That's too many. And
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure there's a story out there. Virgil, let's just face it, man. The only thing we can do is continue to try to put initiatives in place to keep kids safe.
Well,
And continue to
yeah.
checks and balance, to continue a checks and balance system where if there's any lapses, we fix them immediately. And the
Yeah.
communication and the transparency of what we are doing is key. My baby girl's a teacher. I worry about her. I mean, she's a
Yeah.
teacher not too far from where that occurred. So yeah, I
Hmm.
worry about her. It's not just the kids. It's the teachers too. So anyone inside that building is in danger when something like this occurs.
Yeah. Yeah. All the way down to, people who work,
Everybody,
any,
everybody,
everybody,
parents who are
everybody. Yeah.
coming to visit, drop their kids off, visitors, everybody.
Yeah. Everybody. But I think the one thing when we talk about the safety aspect of schools, um, I want to say, I believe I listened to the former Dallas ISD police chief, who I believe is doing some type of consulting work related to school safety. And he had mentioned about so many school districts are making sure that they have these alarms on these doors where if it immediately sends off an alarm. There's a camera right there. And so I think that's where our conversation and hopefully others will look at making sure if there are some gaps in security that school district are doing everything that they can to minimize those gaps. And if that means investing in doors that have an alarm on them when you open them, make that investment, because once again, you clearly see that students are not worried about their safety, because if this young man was worried about his safety, he wouldn't have allowed that other student into that school.
Yeah, I agree. I just think I think there's still a lot of unanswered questions, but I'm just glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad that nobody nobody died, and then my heart goes out to Wilmer Hutchins' parents, students, the community, and then it definitely goes out to Florida State.
Yeah. Well, and Keaton, as you know, I just mentioned that, parents and so many students, they're getting ready for proms, they're getting ready for graduation. And this just puts that graduation at Wilmer Hutchinson is not going to be the same this year.
It's Wilmer Hutchins.
Wilmer Hutchins. Yeah. It's not going to be the same.
It's not.
Because, how can you think about having a graduation when you just had a shooting, even though no lives were lost? It is just still the trauma of that, but it just takes away from all those kids. This was their final year of school,
right.
But here is you got this cloud over this school, and that's going to be, we always talk about bouncing back and not letting something like this here impact us, but you have to consider that. How is this going to impact this upcoming graduation?
Absolutely. So Virgil, so we talked about a lot of serious things, but I do have a little bit of levity here before we go, man. Did you go to your prom?
I sure did. Did you go to yours?
Absolutely.
You know what, man? I bet you probably still got the outfit that you wore to your prom.
No.
I bet you do.
No, I do not.
So do you have any? So what kind of bow tie did you wear?
Did
you wear a bow tie?
I did.
You said you did?
I did.
And it was a clip-on too.
Well, yeah,
you didn't know nothing. You didn't know nothing about tie. You didn't know nothing about tying a bow tie back then.
It was a tuxedo.
It
came with a tuxedo.
You could have went.
Bow ties came with a tuxedo.
Hey, brother, you could have went and got one of those, bow ties that you could tie.
No, I wasn't at that age. You weren't thinking about that.
Oh, so okay, so now you can talk about me when I wear a clip-on bow tie.
Man, you're a grown man. There's a difference between being a 17, 18-year-old boy going to a prom. You wear a tuxedo that comes with a clip-on tie. That's standard. Then being a grown man that's a granddad and still wear the clip-on bow tie. Come on now. Come on, man. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Hey, man. See, you went there asking me about did I go to my prom, and here you are. You went to your prom, but you had on the clip-on bow tie.
I had on the bow tie that came with the tuxedo.
Okay. Yeah, but you could have went and got one.
You buy clip-on bow ties. So,
hey man, I'm not ashamed I'm not ashamed that I will buy a very nice looking clip-on bow tie.
And they spin.
They don't spin.
Okay. They squirt water.
They don't squirt water.
Okay.
Hey man. Hey, let me ask you this. When you gonna put the socks back on?
Dude, anyway, man.
Hey, wait a second, William. Wait a second, William. When you gonna jump on talking about, man, I'm not gonna let you take shots at my frat. Whatever type tie he had on, he was clean.
I appreciate that.
Hey, man, I'm pretty sure he was clean. But once again, man,
Good night, Virgil.
Hey, man, all serious aside, again, Keith, this was a topic that we wish we didn't have to have, but you know, as we talked about trauma after school shootings, um, hopefully the parents get some type of services that they need to deal with the trauma that they're going to be dealing with. And again, I think that is something that we kind of shy away from. We don't think we need to talk to someone, but I think this is a time to see what type of resources that the school district is going to provide to the students and the parents, as well as the teachers, because you got kids who are saying they don't want to, they're scared to go back to school.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
Well, hey, brother, it's been as always, it's been a pleasure. And William, we definitely want to thank you. We finally got Rick, who joined
Oh,
the end
here
of the
we go.
podcast, and Rick says, "Yeah, clip on bow ties and nothing more than officer safety considerations."
Rick, I would agree with you if they were the standard clip on, but they're the ones with the long extension that you hook. So they're still not completely safe. So come on, with a bow tie that you tie, you can untie it and remove it if needed, but you can't remove
Yeah.
that one quick enough. So I know,
Hey,
Rick, I can't. No, I ain't gonna give that to you, Rick.
hey, brother. Again, we want to thank everybody for tuning in for tonight's podcast topic as we talked about trauma after school shootings. And we want to remind you, if you missed any portion of this podcast, go to our uh, Facebook page, You and the Law podcast. Go to our website, www.youandthelawpodcast.com. Go to our YouTube page, You and the Law Podcast Show, You and the Law Podcast Show over on YouTube, and subscribe to it. Tell your family, tell your friends. Go to our YouTube page, subscribe to it. Doesn't cost you anything, and make sure you tune in next Thursday. We're going to be having a guest on who's going to be talking about a book that she wrote. She is a retired police officer out of Washington, D.C. So make sure you tune in next week for another lively conversation right here on You and the Law Podcast Show.
Good
Have a
night,
good night.
everybody.